Some call me nature. Others call me Mother Nature. I've been here for over 4.5 billion years. 22,500 times longer than you. I don't really need people, but people need me. Yes, your future depends on me. When I thrive, you thrive. When I falter, you falter. Or worse. But I've been here for eons. I have fed species greater than you, and I have starved species greater than you. My oceans, my soil, my flowing streams, my forests, they all can take you or leave you. How you choose to live each day, whether you regard or disregard me, doesn't really matter to me. One way or the other. Your actions will determine your fate, not mine. I am nature. I will go on. I am prepared to evolve. Are you?
Hi, we're Eco.
Hi, I'm Gia, the team leader.
Hi, I'm Lauren.
Hi, I'm Alex.
Hi, I'm Carol.
Hi, I'm Katie.
Hi, I'm Beth. We're a 6-member group of S2 young STEM leaders and winners of the Industrial Cadet Bronze Regional Awards this year from Woodfarm High School.
We're extremely grateful for this opportunity to take part in Industrial Cadets Bronze 2022 to 2023.
This year, our project is future-proof, designing buildings for climate change.
Future-proof is all about designing eco-architecture to solve one or the more many issues due to global warming, in which we chose to tackle rising sea levels.
We have decided to design our bill for crofters, as croftland in Scotland is at a huge risk of dying away as the water creeps up onto croftland.
With that being said, let's rewind to the very beginning of our journey.
At the very beginning, we kicked off with a meeting with our mentor Kate Keenan from BEST, formerly Constructing Scotland, who mentored us throughout the process, teaching us about sustainable building technologies and passive house construction.
This gave us a rough foundation for us to start brainstorming, and we researched the waterhouses in Holland and looked at what other countries had done in places with flooding. We also took time to research the history behind crannogs, which are Scottish loch houses, which were common in the Bronze and early Iron Age.
After a while of just researching and taking notes, we came to the conclusion that building our house away from the water wouldn't actually solve the issue.
We then realised that moving away from the water would only temporarily provide space to live, but would delay actually solving the problem.
We realised a crannog-style building would embrace living by the water and provide a different way of crofting life, which would capitalise on the life harvest of animals and plants on, around and below the surface, whilst protecting the occupants from the elements.
However, to design and build this modern crannog for crofters, we realised we would need to pinpoint a location. We reached out to the Scottish Crofting Federation and held a presentation of our project to dozens of crofters from across the country. Here we found out that islands like North and South Uist would potentially be underwater within 100 years. We needed a location which was more inland and versatile enough for the crannog to move around the loch as water levels changed. We decided on
Loch is a loch in the Argyll and Bute council areas.
It is 24 miles long and stretches from the northeast to the southwest and is one of the largest freshwater lochs in Scotland.
This means that other low-lying areas of Scotland would be at significant risk of flooding and indeed disappearing under the sea altogether. Although Loch would be impacted by this, most of the water's edge is already above this level.
Our proposal would provide an alternative housing solution to this issue and would encourage a significant change to the traditional crofting lifestyle, which would be more sustainable.
Crofters are people who work and live off of croft land on Scottish estates by raising native animals and harvesting organic crops.
However, considering these areas will be submerged within the next 80 years, crofters will no longer be raising cattle and the majority of their produce by then will be harvested from the sea.
Our design is preparation for the future, laying ahead of crofters that will all eventually need to move their croft land and be able to live around the constantly rising waters.
However, you may be wondering about how our crannog rises with the water, and the answer to that question would be that there's 2 oil rig legs that have a screw-type structure on the inside. There's currently 103 oil rigs in Scotland, meaning that the oil rig legs only take up space on landfill, which is why we decided to incorporate them into our design.
As the 2 oil rig legs glide along each other, this will allow the house to rise, and of course we keep in mind that with our oil rig leg rotating, our house will be spinning gradually.
But we managed to tackle this issue by dissecting the leg into 3 pieces. So as the 2 at the bottom rotate, the ring at the top would spin in the opposite direction, keeping the house adjacent to the walkway.
This complex design would be powered by tidal energy from the loch.
One of the many facilities within our home, the oil rig legs provide a place to tie ropes for mussels to grow on, to harvest seaweed, and the 3rd floor provides a space for a greenhouse to grow local fruit and veg.
As mentioned, our house not only provides a more sustainable environment, but also allows you to play your part in living a healthier lifestyle. For example, as Loch Awe becomes a seawater loch, unattached beds of wrack will grow and will be available for regular harvesting. Seaweed has been proven to have many additional health benefits such as vitamins A, C, and E. This not only elevates your physical health but also helps to improve your environmental sustainability.
And speaking of living healthily, the 2nd floor is made of frosted glass, allowing more natural light to enter the house, since the heat-absorbent dome is essentially a skylight on a bigger scale.
It has been scientifically proven that the natural light provides healthier sleep patterns, allows you to focus and puts you overall in a better mood.
Now, with enough said on the light side of things, let's talk water.
When it comes to our water system, we will be using collected rainwater that drips from the dome and also have a brown water system which is recycled water through the house.
There will be a ring around the circumference of the glass dome which will take the water through the pipes into the filter and out the faucet.
Our main energy source will also be from the loch, powered by tidal energy since there's a current in the water.
And aside from tidal energy, we will also have solar panels along the walkway.
The tidal energy would be converted via a motor and used to power the house.
And though we do also have the solar panels, we wouldn't need too many since the heat-absorbent glass dome would help maintain the temperature of the building.
The glass dome as a roof makes our crannog very unique. Not only is it good for the planet, and it also is very modern and makes it look classy.
So the dome will heat the house, but it also adds an elegant touch to the design of our build.
As mentioned before, our house lets in natural light, which serves many benefits towards building a healthier lifestyle.
But most importantly, the amount of sunlight that enters the house is also one of the large factors that increase the rate of how sustainable our house is.
With such a large amount of natural light already entering the house, we only have 2 windows along the side of the building on the 1st floor.
The windows were just specifically placed there to also give the ground floor a more open and spacious feel.
Now for insulation. On our trip to the company Best, we got to see all different kinds of insulation that can be used and are more sustainable than the average insulation from a house.
And the insulation made from fast fashion clothing really stood out to us, since it's a large issue that definitely isn't addressed enough.
Fast fashion is a massive issue in the world that's causing huge problems. 50 tonnes of carbon emissions are polluting the UK every minute.
However, since our house is built on water, we had to take into account that our insulation was thoroughly waterproofed from head to toe.
And we decided to use Celotex insulation boards to prevent from any water seeping through and dampening the insulation.
This needed to be done since if the insulation came into any contact with the water, this would dramatically decrease the temperature and make the whole building cold.
The Celotex insulation boards are fully recyclable, which fits within our criteria of low carbon material list.
Speaking of low carbon, our building consists of a large amount of CLT.
We found out that having CLT on the exterior and interior would have a massive impact on the house as a whole in terms of lowering the carbon footprint.
CLT is what we put the most research into because it is still a relatively new material that only came into use in the 1990s.
Scotland produces 3.2 million cubic metres of CLT yearly, which makes it very sustainable since it can be found locally.
Using CLT on the outside of the house was a bit more complicated because we had to figure out a way of doing so the CLT was waterproof.
And conveniently, when trying to figure out how to make it waterproof, we came across a Japanese method called shosugiban, which means to heat with fire.
The wood is first burned and the char is peeled off each plank and finally oiled and coated. This makes the timber last about 80 years longer than it would have without this method, which is very ethical so we don't have to keep buying new materials.
We experimented with shosugiban in the workshop to see if it would waterproof the wood effectively, in which it did.
To conclude, we eventually came up with a list of all the final materials to use. CLT, oil rig legs, recycled clothing for insulation, cork for cork flooring, heat absorbing glass for the glass dome roof, annealed float glass for the windows etc., timber crate, ash crate, and Celotex insulation boards.
Most of these are things we have already talked about, but the rest of our decided materials are listed in detail in our report.
We have put a lot of thought into all aspects of our report and hope it comes across so.
As a team, we put in a lot of work to create a house that plans ahead for the unfortunately large issues that come along with climate change and global warming.
We hope you enjoyed our presentation.
We're all so grateful to be able to participate this year and thank you to Viridor and Beth for the support.
Thank you for listening.
Around mid-April, we reached out to and organised a webinar with the Scottish Crofting Federation, who were interested in our eco-architecture designed for the crofting communities in the north of Scotland.
Here, we presented our design ideas and asked questions as to how our design would benefit the lives of many crofters whose crofts are at risk of flooding.
Throughout the Zoom call, we were given countless suggestions and possible adjustments to make our initial design to elevate our building into a space that naturally adjusts to the many activities that crofters have in their daily life.
For example, one of the crofters from Skye, Russell, suggested that we use sheep's wool for insulation, since crofters produce large amounts of wool on a fairly regular basis. However, this conversation continued to bounce back and forth between the other crofters at the meeting.
The suggestion was originally made since the price of sheep's wool was extremely low, but we came to the agreement with the crofters that using fast fashion for insulation would be the most suitable option for our build, since the old clothing can be sourced very locally and lowers carbon emissions dramatically.
Another idea from the crofters was to use the hexagon panelling to make transporting the glass dome easier. Regarding transporting the glass dome as one piece would require more precautions and vigilance in order to keep the fragile glass intact.
By the end of the webinar, all the suggestions and questions that were addressed in the meeting were noted down and were used as notes as to how we could develop our design to a further level for the national finals.
And these very notes are what provided new roles for every member in our team and gave us ideas on what questions to ask the crofters at our previous crofting trip at Glenbrittle in Skye.
We set off for our crofting trip to Skye on the 19th of May in a minivan with our team, Miss Murray and Paul Tulloch, who is a Duke of Edinburgh leader. It took us around 6 hours total to drive to the Glenbrittle camping site, where we stayed for 3 nights.
On our first day, we visited Alex's Croft near Plockton High School, where we had a croft takeaway, a farm shop and plenty of animals for us to meet. Alex also gave us a tour of all his plants inside and out of the greenhouse, which had a large variety of fruit and vegetables in preparation to be harvested.
Soon after many hours of running after cattle and spending time with chickens and ducks, all 7 of us were starving and went to the crofting takeaway at Alex's Croft, which served fresh food made from his own organic ingredients.
With a quick energy restock, we moved on to a short interview with Alex, asking questions such as how has climate change been affecting his croft and how high rising water levels had an impact on his safety of his land.
One of the answers that shocked us during the interview was that many crofters, including Alex, have been stockpiling tons of plastic on their croft due to not having a recycling centre near their croft. The closest from his croft was 60 miles away and would cost him for him to go at his own expense. The plastic waste comes from hay and silage bales, and it's made from polyurethane, which is fully recyclable. However, this is generational waste and a problem for the winding crofting community. So a question we have on behalf of all of the crofting communities in Scotland to Viridor is if there could be anything done to prevent them from stockpiling plastic.
The next croft we visited was in Einert, in a southwest facing coastal glen, with a small river running through the sheep fields. This croft was roughly 200 acres and suffered significant effects of tidal plastic waste, organic waste from rotting seaweed, and coastal erosion.
After seeing the amount of litter and coastal erosion at Cheryl's Croft, we planted 100 trees to prevent the land from further erosion and handpicked around 225 kilograms of plastic waste that was placed in her croft.
Through this process, we realised how climate change was gradually affecting remote areas of our country and came back to our tents that night only with more reason to continue our journey in this project, not knowing that there are people that would benefit from our design.
And while we were in Skye to make the most of our time, we also visited Neast Point and Ferry Pools and spent time together at the beach at our camping site before we soon found ourselves in the van on the way back to school.
With many pages of notes from the crofters on our trip and webinar, we moved on to the development stage of our project by developing our model, rewriting strips, upgrading our display boards with new information.
To conclude, our design response to future-proof for climate change is a sustainably built crannog addressing the environmental needs of the Scottish crofting community.
We'd like to thank the Mentors Best, Construction Scotland, for their support, as well as Viridor for the opportunity to take part in this project. But also, moving forward, we'd like to ask Viridor if there's anything they can do to help with the issue of plastic waste on coastal crofts. Again, thank you for all this really exciting opportunity and experience in STEM. Thank you. Bye.
One way or the other. Your actions will determine your fate, not mine. I am nature. I will go on. I am prepared to evolve.